The first part of my life was around making money to feel better about who I am. The second part of my life is making money. Just kidding. It's still about making money.
Yeah.
But it's about adding value. And I am valuable. I am worthy. I am deserving, whether or not I have money. Those two things are disconnected now. And quite frankly, I make so much more money now, but it's because I want to help other people grow.
Today, we're joined by Grant Muller, the top producing real estate agent, coach, and author of Top of Heart. By his late 20s, he reached millionaire status, only to lose it all to addiction. But Grant fought back, redefining success in his own terms. Tune in for his powerful story of grit, growth, and gaining fulfillment money cannot buy.
Welcome to Own It. I'm Hillary Saunders, joined by my world-traveling co-host, Spencer Kroll.
World traveling, yes, as long as the world was the United States.
No, but it was so cool because Grant Muller is our guest today. Thank you so much for being here.
Of course.
And while we were chatting, you guys had some South African Afrikaans reference is where that came from.
Yeah, all that happened here in the United States.
Okay, never mind.
Clearly.
Yes.
Spencer's not traveled anywhere. I'll note to all the ladies listening. But Grant, your story hit me last year while we were at the Alliance in Houston. And I read your book, Top of Heart. And there is an amazing, you tell it way better than I will, but the bootstrap of your story of getting yourself out of the depths of despair and just knocking it out of the park and being one of the top producers in Denver now is just an amazing story to tell. And I think you are one of the quintessential people that I've wanted to talk to since hearing you speak last year, just because you embody Own It. And so I would love to just start out by however you want to start this. Whichever direction you want to take it is fine with me, but your story and why it is so instrumental.
Thank you. What an introduction. I don't know if I can live up to that. The short version is that in my early 20s, I had a big corporate career. I was very, very driven. My goal was to become a millionaire by 30. And in my late 20s, I joined an internet startup. We went public on the stock market. We all got rich. Porsches and Ferraris started showing up in the parking lot. This is before Google, but super exciting times in tech. It was just the late 90s, right before the tech bust. Spoiler alert. And I remember the night we went public on the stock market, I was sitting in my fancy condo overlooking the skyline in Denver thinking, is this it? Is this all there is? I was a millionaire, and it didn't change the way I felt about myself. I still didn't like who I was. I still had shame about who I was. I wasn't happy with my life. And so that kind of disappointment drove me to continue drinking more and then pretty quickly to try cocaine for the first time. And I was hooked from the start. It solved all of the problems I'd ever had my whole life. And within a few months, I'd been fired from the job. And I remember thinking, well, I'm a millionaire. I'm not 30 yet. I'm not fired. I'm retired. And so I started partying full time. I was spending about $30,000 a month on cocaine, trips, quote unquote friends. I had lots of friends. And one day, I went to exercise more shares of stock, and they told me there are no shares of stock. I had been partying so hard, I'd forgotten to exercise the shares before they expired, and I lost $1.2 million in that moment. And so I thought, well, what do I do now? Something's got to change. So, I sold the cars. And I turned the cars into coke and cash and kept partying. And a few days later, the cars were gone, the coke was gone, the cash was gone, the friends were gone. Except one buddy who stayed behind to help me quit coke, because I knew I needed to quit. At this point, it was clear I had a problem. I had to solve it. And so he introduced me to meth.
Oh, that's helpful.
Yeah.
Very helpful.
Yeah. So as you can imagine, the story didn't get better from there. It got worse. So I ended up on the streets, homeless, selling drugs to pay for drugs. And at the very end, I was hiding in a crack house from the gang member who wanted to kill me. I owed him a lot of money, and he had gang members looking for me all over town. And so I had a choice. I could either be killed or I could get clean. And fast forward, I've been clean for 6.5 years now. So sometimes it just takes a really good, really terrible moment to help you get clean. But you mentioned bootstrap. And so this is the part of the story where I always share that I didn't get clean or sober without a ton of help. So yes, I did a lot of work that I needed to do. I took the actions, but it was only due to a ton of help and also a good dose of privilege that I was able to get clean and sober. I have friends who didn't have that same privilege, who didn't have support systems when they got out of incarceration, and some of them are dead or still living on the streets or still in that life. So I'm grateful for all of it.
You said something that was really fascinating. Is you talked about you achieved this quote unquote goal, right? Like a lot of people, you achieved your goal of money, but it wasn't a life goal. It wasn't a passion goal, and it didn't erase the shame, which I thought was really interesting that you said that. Did you tie onto something now? I mean, getting clean, is there a passion? Is there a different goal that you have now that powers you through the day or your life?
The first part of my life was around making money to feel better about who I am. Mm-hmm. The second part of my life is making money. Just kidding. It's still about making money.
Yeah.
But it's about adding value. And I am valuable. I am worthy. I am deserving, whether or not I have money. Those two things are disconnected now. Mm-hmm. And quite frankly, I make so much more money now, but it's because I want to help other people grow. And so I make money through helping other people grow. I grow through other people. And so it's all about adding more value into the world than what I take in income. My favorite book in the world, Bob Berg wrote a book called The Go-Giver, Bob Berg and John David Mann. And Bob's become a really great friend and mentor of mine. And the law of value says, your value is determined by, or your income is determined, by how much more you give in value than you take in payment. And so now this part of my life is around that passion. And my real passion is for helping others grow. And ironically, I was coaching my employees at Charles Schwab in my early corporate career. I actually had more of my employees become managers and get promoted out of my department than any other manager at Charles Schwab. Mm-hmm. So Chuck Schwab himself came to my office and said, what are you doing here? And what I was doing was coaching. I just didn't have a word or a name for it yet. Mm-hmm. So I've always been in love and had the passion for that. I just got a little sidetracked.
Where did you develop the passion for coaching? Did you do sports as a child or have a mentor? Was it just something inherent that you're like, you know what? I just have this thing where I can teach people how to do their job better.
It's a great question. I don't consider myself a teacher or a trainer. I'm actually not the best at teaching step by step. I think I have a bit of a gift or passion for helping others see what's possible in them. And I think that's what a coach is. So a trainer teaches you how to do something. A coach helps you, as I see it, coach helps you see what's possible, helps you identify your own emotional truths, discover what's real for you. Because I believe we all know what's real for us. Sometimes we just need someone to help us and guide us through that, and that's my role.
No, I mean, sometimes we don't see what that role
Absolutely.
is also.
Yes.
I'm just curious, did you have a mentor in the business, or did you have a coach?
For real estate work or for professional
for anything,
work?
anything.
No, sports I did. Sports, and I translated a lot that I learned from my sports career.
What kind of sports?
I swam competitively.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
And I have a great story. I'm not going to tell it now, but I have a story for you later about my swim coach in high school. That's a whole other story. And trust me, I got life lessons there. But what's interesting though is I never really had a coach in real estate. I had a coach that said, make sure you knock on doors and do all these, make sure you make 10 phone calls a day or whatever it was. But I didn't have anybody that coached me in terms of the life that I needed to develop with real estate. Like, how do you develop your passion when you see people that need coaching? right? I mean, people have to come to the mountain or whatever right? So you see people that definitely need coaching. Do you reach out to them, or do you wait for them maybe to come to you? Or I'm just curious how you handle that.
I think it's a little bit of both, but I don't think any of us want someone approaching us saying, "Hey, I think you could use some growth here. Let me help you out." And so I think it's the kind of coaching I do, which is really high performance coaching, is for people who are super committed to going to the next level. Mm-hmm. I'm not a great coach for somebody who's struggling to get started and doesn't have the motivation or the ambition. There are great coaches for those people. I'm just not that coach. I'm a great coach for somebody who's got their business up and running, and now they want to take it to the next level. They want to find that next piece for them. And sometimes that means more business. Mm-hmm. Sometimes that means treading water and maintaining business and finding more passion in life. Building a better relationship at home, whatever the thing might be. Mm-hmm. But I am always excited about that next level.
You said something earlier, which I translate and I say a lot, which is the abundance mindset versus the scarcity mindset. Mm-hmm. And when you yourself can make that shift internally is when you give more to others, you end up receiving more too. How do you educate people on that shift? Because I think we are inherently taught scarcity. And it is very difficult to switch it and say, no, there are lots of real estate transactions. There's plenty for you, for me, for everyone, or in any other part of life.
Coming from a place where I had days where I didn't have food or means to find food. I spent part of my life hunting for cigarette butts in the sidewalks. That kind of level. And so then when I heard abundance mindset, when I got into real estate while I was living in a storage unit, that abundance mindset conversation really always pulled me in the wrong direction. And I thought, yeah, that's easy for you to say. People who had more than me were always telling me I had enough.
Oh, interesting.
Right? And so for me, abundance mindset has to start with taking care of ourselves first and finding that abundance within. So we can meditate for days and days at a time, but somebody's going to take our TV at some point, mm-hmm. right? Or somebody's going to come and repossess the car. So I think that an abundance mindset is critical, but we have to start with an action, and then the action will start creating some real abundance, and then it's about how we feel about what we have that will create more. But I think what I'm trying to say is, sorry.
No.
What I think is important is we have to start a little bit of a flame. We have to have a little bit of a flame going. Then we can have the abundance and mindset and just add the wood to it. But we need the flame first.
Yeah, so which I find interesting because I was a coach. I had the role of coach. And I don't think I was a very good coach, right? But I had the role of coach at a brokerage. And I don't know if you're a subscriber to The Secret. Right,
yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
And so I would tell people that we talk about abundance, and it didn't click in for me for a while in terms of how to describe it to them, because they would meditate thinking, I'm going to put it out there and it's going to come back. It's like, you can put it out there and then you have to make it happen. You're putting it out there for yourself and then you have to follow that lead. And when you're talking about people talking about abundance and you're looking for cigarette butts, there is an abundance of cigarette butts out there.
Sure.
Right? So that's the thing is it's not that you're rich, but that you have the opportunity to find what it is you're looking for. Now, I don't recommend going in the cigarette butt business. I don't think the exchange rate's very good these days. Higher than Bitcoin, though. But that's such an interesting thing that you had this experience, and you were saying people were telling you, right, that you were richer than you thought you were. Can you just tell me a little bit about that?
Well, living in a storage unit, I had just been earning $9 an hour at the front desk of a really big real estate franchise. Mm-hmm. I figured that would be how I'd learn the business. And then getting my license, it was such a commitment to give up that $9 an hour. And so I was kind of scrapping things together, doing some transaction coordination for people. By the way, I am the world's worst transaction coordinator.
It is not for everyone, Grant. Right. It's okay.
I started a transaction coordination company. I called it Transaction Guru. I think the name was the best part of the company. But it did teach me to to pay attention to the details and learn the details. I'm not a detail guy. So I learned that piece of the business and then was trying to get sales together. And so I had to find the abundance I found was in the abundance of action. And so I didn't feel abundant until I was, as an example, this is in 2009. So the market's at the lowest. I'm living in a storage unit. I have nothing but time. And there are tons of properties on the market. So I would do dozens of previews every single week. And I, by mistake, ended up with a potential client. And they asked me, well, how long have you been in the business and what do you know about the market? And I'd been in the business like 4 months. And so my answer was just, I see more property in a week than most agents see all year. Mm-hmm. So anything you want to know, I can tell you. And I had such confidence and abundance from that action. Mm-hmm. So I was able to kind of build that abundance from there. So there were, but then once I got a deal or two together, I think that the other agents, as you said, who were had more than me, I'll say, oh, you're doing really well for your first year. You have enough. Be happy with what you've got. And I'm thinking, yeah, that's great, but I'm going to all these lunch and learns because I need a lunch. And so I was ready to be able to actually buy my own food at the grocery store. And coming from where I had come from, I had some big debts to take care of, like legitimate debts, not drug debts. Right. I had those too. I left those. But I had a big financial amends to make. Mm-hmm. And so it was a huge mountain to climb.
What was something that you learned now looking back at your time in the financial industry and with the go, gas, high octane lifestyle of, flashy cars and whatnot? I think Wolf of Wall Street basically is what's in my brain. Margot Robbie in the bathtub situation. What did you learn from that experience, that emotional high and low, that you've been able to translate into being successful in the real estate world? Not saying that they're the same, but I feel like you learned something in that phase of life to do or not do in this phase of life. Mm-hmm.
There were lots, but from a kind of philosophical or bigger picture perspective, I think the real message is that there is pleasure and then there's joy. And those are both okay. They're both wonderful. They're both fun, but they have different meanings and places. And so there's fast money and quick times and making the sale and making something happen and convincing somebody to do something, maybe against their best interests, but there's still a high in that and the fun in that, right? And the quick money and being able to make that happen and the power of that. That's very different than the long and lasting joy of a real relationship where you're helping elevate someone else's life in their best interest and in the way that they want it to happen. And that's a much longer lasting thing. And so I think we can compare that to, for some of us, some material things are really meaningful to us and are very beautiful and wonderful and lovely to have. And then some things we might wear or have, not for ourselves, but for a signal we want to send to the world, as an example. So if you own a Rolex and you love your Rolex, I think that's beautiful. And if you own a Rolex and you just want to send a signal to the world and that's why you wear the Rolex, then that's just a little different. And both of them I don't judge, but I think that having those different experiences at such a crazy degree has just helped me see it differently. So, my hair tingling as the meth hits my bloodstream, and I've been up for 4 days, and there's just this incredible high that runs through your brain. Sure, but that's pleasure. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing like connecting with my higher power or connecting with another human being or connecting with my horse. That joy is so different, right? So I think just understanding the difference in those, and I apply that in real estate too, with real relationships.
It's really funny you say that because there is a true joy in giving someone keys for the first time, their first home that they've
Very
saved.
Special.
And there is a that you just the heartwarming that you helped them do that. How does that have meaning for you now, considering that you were homeless and you had that experience for yourself after that experience? Like, how do you translate that? Because I'm assuming that it has some very extremely important meaning for you too, that you get to be a part of their story.
Having being in the place where you truly have nowhere to go is being homeless. So at some point, after I'd been when I was on the streets, like in the beginning, I could kind of sit in a hotel lobby and say I was waiting for a friend. Mm-hmm. But when you're obviously homeless, you no longer have access to those places. So having no place to go to use the restroom or to get warm or just to be, having no privacy because you have no place, especially as an introvert, it's incredibly traumatic. So then to have a home, like we heard someone speak on the stage today, that holds love and light and safety and security, has an incredible meaning. So to give that, to be a part of, I shouldn't say to give that, to be a part of that for someone else is incredibly meaningful. And I think as realtors, a lot of times I see some callousness where, for instance, we schedule a showing to go show property. We're running 45 minutes late. We show up at the showing anyway, as if it's just our product that we can bring people through, when it's not. It's someone's home. Understanding that when we get a listing, sometimes those listings are for wonderful reasons. Somebody's moving up in the world, somebody's moving to a new opportunity, but sometimes there's a story there. And often, I think my connection to home in that way has really helped me in business. So just recognizing, wow, your kids grew up in this home. And then, they had their birthdays here. And they had their first breakups here. And mommy and daddy split up here, or whatever the story might be. This is where our lives happen, right? So, I could go on and on. It's so important. And we forget that as agents, I think, sometimes.
Yeah, there's a story I heard on NPR years ago about a woman who would always find four-leaf clovers, because this is an incredibly rare thing. And they asked her, how do you find them? And she said, I look for them. And I think, and they're there. You just have to know what to look for. Like, there's a certain pattern that we just don't see it, but she has developed that. For yourself, what is your four-leaf clover? Like, is it like your superpower?
It's a great question. I think one of the things is looking for what is the human piece that's happening right now. So not what is happening for my seller right now about this transaction, but what is happening? What's the bigger piece? So looking at it from a higher level and paying attention to the emotion in someone's voice, paying attention to the moment in someone's voice. So a quick example using the same kind of run I was on is, hey, I'm so excited. We got this offer. It's amazing. It's better than I ever thought possible. Are you excited? And the seller may be saying, that's great. And then just hearing or feeling that maybe there's something else going on. And then being willing to ask, so what's going on? Just honoring the emotion in the moment, honoring the human being in front of us. And often you'll get an answer that's something like, I'm super excited too. I'm so happy about the price. It's just real for me now. And now I realize that Tom really is gone. Right? Yeah. Or that whatever the final thing might be. And so understanding that and honoring that. And all of that sounds, a little woo-woo. But here's the other thing. That's where all the money is too. Because that's where the referrals are.
Right.
So when we create those relationships that are what I call top of heart, we develop this connection and it creates a moat around our clients because now they're in this community with us. They're not in our sphere where we send them on drip campaigns. They're in this place, this community with us. And so anytime that anything happens in their lives that has to do with real estate or with homes, they're going to think of us and want to be a part of what we do.
I think it also boils down to actually giving a damn, like truly giving a damn for your clients and the community and their situation and meeting them where they are. Don't project where you think they should be, but meeting them where they are.
I was really tone deaf on one thing. I was selling a home for a couple that was divorcing, and and the wife was living in the home. The husband had moved out, and we got a good price for the home. And I said, hey, we got this really great offer, and she was upset. Like I thought, this is what you said you wanted. And I said, I thought this is what you wanted, and we're getting the price to sell your home. She goes, we're getting the price to sell my home. I'm selling my life. I'm sorry, I'm like thinking, and I actually, I cried, because then I realized, wow, I'm looking at it in this one way.
Yeah.
And I
That's
it was a
story.
huge, but I felt like crap, but it was like, but because I wasn't looking at it from the human perspective, and I think that is just so key for this business, because it is about home.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's all about home.
Yeah, I had this listing opportunity, and I'm walking up the driveway. This is early in my career, and I'm thinking, this place is sexy. I mean, full frontal flat iron views in Boulder, and I'm walking up the driveway, just multiplying my commission times the dollar amount, thinking, I gotta win this one. And the door opens, and instead of just a couple there were 4 adults. And I don't think much of it. I just don't ask any questions. Please give me a tour of the house. They give me a tour of the house. I sit them down in the dining room and I start my gorgeous presentation. This is back in the day where iPads were kind of new and a big deal. And I pull out my iPad and I'm telling them all the stuff. And partway through the presentation, they're starting to look at each other. And then they look back at me and they look at each other. And I'm thinking, is there something like on my shirt? What's going on here? And finally, I had to stop and say, look, is there something I'm missing? And they go, well, you see, we're all siblings. Mom just died. Dad just finally agreed to go to assisted living. And all he wants in the sale of this house is to find a couple that will love it like they did. You see, that door over there, Dad carried Mom across that threshold over 50 years ago. We all were brought from the hospital directly to this house, had our birthdays here, our graduations here. We all moved out of this house for the first time. Dad only cares. He doesn't care about price. He doesn't care about marketing. He doesn't care about how many people you can bring through. All the stuff you're talking about doesn't matter. He just wants it sold while he's still alive, and he wants it to go to someone who will love it like he did. Whoa. I just felt like such a jerk. I did not get that listing.
But you learned something.
But I learned so much. And I thought I felt like I needed to be, the selling on Sunset, right?
Yeah.
I needed to be the fancy, dapper guy with all the answers in the presentation. I'd never bothered to ask what mattered to them.
I think that's a huge takeaway. I really do.
Yeah.
Is that you learn much more by asking questions and having open-ended conversations.
Conversation, not presentation.
Right. Ask the why. Like, tell me about you. Tell me about this house.
What matters to you?
Yeah,
Exactly.
That's amazing. Well, one last question before we wrap up, Grant. I want to know, what is your next phase? What are you excited about? You mentioned that you are actually an introvert, but you have to be an extrovert on stage, and that can be draining. What is your next? What gets you excited when you wake up in the morning?
I'm an outgoing introvert.
Okay.
So I always thought I was an extrovert until I met a real extrovert who worked for me. And at the end of our events, she would be all jazzed up, and I would go home and hold myself and cry. That's how I knew I was an introvert. Not really, but it drains me. But I love being on stage. I love coaching people. I'm going to continue with my real estate team. I've added a business partner in real estate so that I can really grow coaching. It's where my passion is. It's why I was born. It's the next third of my life. I think I'm 52, so I figure I've lived a third. I've got 2/3 left, right? So I'm very optimistic if nothing else, but I'm going to, the next third of my life is going to be dedicated to coaching and helping other people grow.
I love it. Well, your book, Top of Heart, can be found anywhere you find books. What about your
Yes.
Instagram or socials?
The Grant Muller Coach. Grant Muller Coach, something like that.
You'll find it. It'll just be fine. Well, I appreciate you. Thank you for sharing your story.
Yeah.
And it's always a pleasure and learning a lot from you. So appreciate it.
It's been great. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, we'll see you on another episode of Own It.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we will.
I'll be here.
Great.
On the next episode of Own It, we're joined by Casey McLeod, Sides Managing Broker of California and real estate powerhouse. From selling appliances to leading a top California team, Casey shares how mastering the basics and staying calm under pressure sets him apart. Don't miss the episode.